Megan, Mary, welcome to the Art of Healing's little Facebook group. Thank you for coming along tonight, although it's not tonight for you, and just to talk about you and your women's dream analysis.com. Tell us about you. How did you start your journey? How did you get to where you are today? What was it that inspired you?
Yes. So thank you, Amanda. I'm so happy to be here. And I think it started when I was a child, really. I used to have recurring nightmares and recurring flying dreams, amazing flying dreams. And I really was always curious what they meant. And I used to look in dream dictionaries and things like that. And I was the student of everything mystical, esoteric, metaphysical, really just always dove straight in to find out as much as I could about things that were unknown and just intrigued me. And I used to keep a dream journal, but as I got older, I stopped doing that. And I always felt like I had the ability to understand things that really we weren't being taught in school, but I didn't really know what to do with them. And so it wasn't until I really became very ill and found out that I had several chronic illnesses on top of autoimmune illnesses and all sorts of really serious medical conditions that I had to really reevaluate my course and just really do a lot of inner work. And as part of that, I started meditating every day. And I had done it before, but just not at that level to that extent. And when I really started doing that, I call it a spiritual awakening, but it was really a spiritual remembering because it took me back to what I'd discarded, what I'd pushed away, what I'd forgotten about my connection that I have, and heightened my intuition, really showed me that my dreams are my inner guidance that I hadn't been listening to. And it was a major part of my healing journey. And when I finally was well enough, it became my urgent passion to share it with everyone else so that they could also use it for their own healing.
Great. And so tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind sharing, about the journey of illness and how has that shaped you and what have you done to help yourself through that?
Mm-hmm. So initially, the first thing I struggled with for many, many years was interstitial cystitis, which is also known as painful bladder syndrome. And it affects primarily women, and there isn't a cure. And so I struggled with that for a very long time. But then I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is also is autoimmune. And once I got that semi under control, then my vision started failing really fast, and I was diagnosed with mold illness and chronic Lyme disease, and had to have 3 cataract surgeries. And so I was in this really difficult spot, both emotionally, spiritually, and physically, and had to address it. And so I was very fortunate to find a functional medicine doctor that specializes in autoimmune and was recommended to meditate daily to really just get that stress level down, because the stress can activate the autoimmune response. And of course, we might be genetically predisposed, other women in my family have it as well, but it's can activate and turn on a whole bunch of other diseases in our body, right? And once we get one, we can get another. And so it was up to me to not just rely on the medical professionals to do their part, but to really address the mind and spirit part along with the body part.
Were you able to relate that to specific? Do you know why you got ill? Are there specific stressors in your life that you had experienced that you could say maybe this is a root cause of underlying of that?
Yeah, I think that we all go through certain things in our lives that, of course, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves too.
Mm.
And so it's a combination, I think. Stress can appear in a lot of different forms.
Yeah.
But it's something that over time does wear on us in a way we don't even realize. And we start to just not listen, not only to our inner voice, but to the body signs, your body speaking to you all the time too. And you get used to just kind of muting it.
And so do you, starting then on this journey of dream analysis, you started with your own dreams to start with, to try and identify. Did that then take you into understanding others better, or is it just that you develop? I mean, I'm wondering if there is if somebody dreams about sheep in a field, that would lead you to mean and believe this is a certain whatever it is in their life, or is it what that person dreams about is relative to how that person is? So one person dreaming about a sheep in a field won't be the same as another person dreaming about the sheep in a field.
Correct. Absolutely. Okay. So that's the basis of my theory, is that I have a method that I call the dream mirror method. And it essentially is me holding up a mirror to you, where the onus is on the dreamer. The meaning is with the dreamer. It's the opposite of a dream dictionary approach, because I don't want to say, well, a sheep means this in general, and this is the definition. So anyone who has a sheep dream, that's what it means. I really want to know, what's your experience with sheep? What do you associate with sheep? What does it remind you of? How does it make you feel? Where does it place you in a time in your life or a situation in your life? And that is where we get to the real meaning, not from the archetypes or cultural stereotypes or someone else's definition, right? Because it's your dream. It's coming from your subconscious, and your subconscious is virtually a treasure box of every single thing you've ever experienced and learned and know. And so I feel that dreams are our own personal stories. Right. They're stories that hold a meaning and a message that's just for us. And the story is comprised of everything in our subconscious. So of course, the meaning of that is going to be very, very personal and specific to you as well.
And do you think that that is purely intuition, or is it somehow also messages from another source?
Yes, I call myself a mystic for that reason, that I feel the dream world is a portal. And I think there's a lot of interdimensionality that we don't acknowledge when we just look at sleep science or the traditional psychological approach to dreams. They're not allowing that mystical aspect that I feel it has, because of course people can have premonition dreams or visitation dreams, or dream of visiting somewhere else, and it's so vivid and real that they've never been, and people you've never met, and all sorts of things. And so I believe that that's entirely possible, and that it's both our higher self, our intuition, our universal self, but it's also tapping into the universe that we are intrinsically part of. And dreams are outside of the constraints and realms of time and space. So that is why I feel they have such potential, and they are a much, much broader, wider, mysterious world than we give them credit.
Yeah, absolutely. But often people will say that I don't have dreams. Mm-hmm. But is it, I guess it's just that they don't necessarily recall what happened.
Correct.
I find that I will awake first thing and know that I've had a dream, but as soon as my sort of conscious brain comes in, I can't seem to recall exactly what it was, but I know in that moment of waking, I know that I'd had it, and then it just goes, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's true. A lot of people say, well, what if you don't dream? Or what if you don't remember your dreams? And everybody dreams. We have about 3 to 5 a night, even if you don't remember them. And part of some of the reason that you might not remember them is that you've subconsciously turned that part off because you don't want to tune in to that aspect. You've decided at some point subconsciously that you don't really want to tune into that. And so the other thing about the brainwave state is that when we're meditating, we're in theta, and that's the same brainwave state when we dream. And so there's a lot of similarity in those states, and they can complement each other. Learning to meditate and doing it on a regular basis can get you accustomed to being into that brainwave state. And what I call the middle world is the space between waking up and sleeping and being fully awake. And so when we're transitioning from theta to beta, that's the middle world where there's an opportunity to grasp onto the messages and the memory of the dream. And if we don't take advantage of that moment, then within the first 5 minutes, we'll forget 50% or more of the dream. And then unless something jogs our memory throughout our course of a day, it's gone. We're not going to remember it.
Yeah.
So it's really creating a practice around being cognizant of that space, being aware of that space, and starting to tap into that space with intent.
Yeah. And I was asking us my mind's gone blank now. Isn't that interesting? I had a question that I was going to ask you about. I know what it was. That when you have I often have daydreams.
Mm-hmm.
So I will often go off into a little fantasy story, normally where I'm sort of like the heroine of the piece or something. And how much is that related to dream state? Is it a dream state per se, or is that a different aspect? Is that more of a fantasy world or whatever?
Well, there's several different brainwave states that we go through. And there's also the one that is awake but drowsy, which is alpha. So I think I feel like we can definitely connect with guidance while we're awake, if that's the question. And so I receive guidance all the time, especially in the form of synchronicities or coincidences. When you start your day and you just say, show me what I need to see, show me what is out there, and you go and you open your computer and you're about to do something, and then you end up going a different direction down this rabbit hole that leads you here, and that connects you with someone else, and you don't even remember. They say, how did you find me? And you're like, I don't even remember, but I just followed where I was led. That is really being in that alignment. That is really following that guidance. The guidance is with us all the time, but when we start to acknowledge it, when we start to be open to it, that's when we create that energetic reality that allows it to interact with us.
And so do you think that the work that you do with people I guess it's more than a one-off sitting and with the dream that they come to you with?
It can be a one-off, but normally what I like to do is have a series. So I do singular sessions, but I also do what I call the journey, which is a series of sessions, because I feel that over time, you're going to have a better grasp of what you're looking for, learning your dream language. I mean, it really is your own language, and you can't learn a language in a day, right? So it's taking the time to start to decode it for yourself so that then you're empowered to take that toolkit and use it going forward on your own dreams, because you dream every night, right? So it's a never-ending process. It's a journey.
Absolutely. How long have you been doing this for?
Well, in this capacity, in this business, just this year, but of course, I feel like I've been doing this probably lifetimes, and I've been told that in some sessions. So it's really something that I feel so intrinsically in my soul that I'm called to do. I wasn't even really planning on it. I was in the middle of writing my own fiction novel, and my attention was elsewhere when this happened, and I followed the calling. And now I see why. The more I follow the calling, everything that's happening, I would have never imagined that it would be possible.
Mm. And that's wonderful. I love stories like that people are, just following their path, which is, it is, we are kind of guided and led towards a certain route. I'm now much more, I started off doing massage and things like that, and but I'm much more called now to doing meditation. I've been running an online daily meditation group, and I feel like that for me is like I'm really driving that forward a lot more now. And it comes from a really, when you go into that calling, it's the way I feel it's driving is so heart led rather than thought led, or in a masculine driven state. It feels very feminine and heart led. I feel that's from my perspective. I don't know if
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. And it's so opposite from the way I've functioned my whole adult life. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think we're all taught, aren't we, that we should be following this path towards success and wealth and whatever it is. And I know in the States it's the American dream, isn't it? That's one of the things that you're led to talk to do. But yeah, the dream is to live within the heart, isn't it? Really, I think.
Mhm.
So tell me about the dream mirror method.
Yes. So, like I was saying earlier, I really felt that dream dictionaries weren't the answer. And so I did a ton of research and studying, of course, over many years, different approaches, whether they were from psychology or philosophy or theory or metaphysics, and all of the different ways you could look at dreams, and devised my own method called the dream mirror method that I feel is the most beneficial way to learn your dream language, decode what the messages are for you, and then learn how to integrate that so it can be part of your personal growth. So the 4 steps are memory, mood, mirror, and metaphor. And memory is what we've been talking about. It's really just remembering your dream, which for some people it is not that easy. So that's the first step, is learning how to recall your dreams, and starting to journal in general, as well as keeping a dream journal. And the other part of the memory step is I ask you to name your dream. So name it as if it were a story. It doesn't have to be a long title, but if you were to summarize it in a short phrase, what would it be? Then I want you to write down everything you can remember as soon as you wake up, whether you're recording that audio on your phone or you're writing it down. Just try to write down everything in detail that you can remember about the dream. Step 2 is mood, and that's where I ask you to write down the mood that you had before you went to bed, while you were dreaming, and then when you woke up. So what was the range of emotions there? Because the mood can be a really big indicator towards the meaning. Step 3 is mirror, and this is the most important part, because I want to be a mirror to your subconscious. I want to help you pull out those threads from your subconscious into your conscious so that you can integrate that into your knowledge in a holistic way. So I ask about the people, the places, the situations, the actions. I look at elements like fire, earth, air, and water, as well as numbers, colors, weather, all the different things that you might remember about your dream, but you're not writing them down. Or when you tell someone, you just summarize it. Oh, I dreamt I lost my phone. And you don't say all of the other stuff, but you can see it in your mind's eye. So by asking you questions to draw that out, you'll say, oh, well, yeah, it looked like the school I used to go to, but it was bigger and there were these other things. And you start to really pull that out and bring it here instead of it just being ethereal in the back of your mind. And then step 4 is metaphor. And that's where I look at the title of the story, everything that we look at in the mirror, as well as your mood, and we put it together and say, how is this a metaphor for a situation in your waking life? And what is, if it were a parable, what is the story telling us?
That's brilliant. And so in this process, it sounds like it's quite a lengthy process. Does it, how long do you work with somebody for? If you're, even if you're just doing a one-to-one session or one-off session, how long
Yeah,
do you?
it depends on how much content we have, right? So some women tend to record much longer dream records than men, which it makes it easier to work with them because they can tend to be high dream recallers. If you have a really long dream, it might take more than one session, but many times I can get through that in an hour's time. I've even done them on my podcast in shorter amounts of times, and live events when it's a lot of people, much shorter amounts of time. So you're not going to be able to go into the depths of the deep levels. But even from the title and a few questions about the people and a few questions about the actions, many times we can start to peel back those layers enough that people go, oh. And, the more detail, the further we can go.
Brilliant. And so you can presumably work with anybody in the world, really, wherever you are, because you'll be working, presumably work primarily
Yes.
online.
Yes.
And assuming that they speak are you speaking their language or they speak your
Right.
language? And then so what is a dream journey?
So a dream journey is a series of sessions, is a series of 4 dream sessions. But the additive is that in between sessions, I curate a series of healing modalities for you based on what comes up in the dream. And they're modalities that I've found useful in my healing journey. So it might be meditation that I'll have you listen to, or a visualization, or an affirmation, journal prompts, as well as sound frequency music, because all of those things have been integral in my healing. And they're things that can help you integrate the knowledge that you gain once you do decode your dream and you figure out, okay, I see this is really a story about this situation. This is weighing on my subconscious. This is affecting the trajectory of my waking life. Now, what do I do with this? How do I take this information and integrate it in a way that helps me grow?
Okay. So do you find then that you are attracting in women who are looking for change in their life, or looking to progress in a way, maybe are a little bit stuck and unsure about the way forward? Is that sort of the person that comes to you?
Yes, it's definitely women who are seeking, right? I call them the seekers. So women who know there's something else than what it appears to be, know that they have another purpose or knowledge that they're supposed to gain, are seeking guidance, but just don't know where to find it. And it can be women from any walks of life, but I also do a lot of work with other coaches and other practitioners. So, because those people have already done a lot of inner work, they've already gone through something that they realized they had to heal from, and then discovered a modality that they felt they really were compelled to share with the world, and are already doing that work. They already see the value of it and are used to committing to that. So that is actually a large part of who I work with as well. But of course, any woman who's on a journey, it doesn't have to be that, Maybe they have a recurring dream that they just keep having and they don't know why. Maybe they have nightmares. Maybe they're having prophetic dreams, or they want to learn how they can use their dreams in a creative way, or to gain confidence, or to improve their overall wellness. There's so many applications.
Yeah. Absolutely. But also the thing that I'm learning, experiencing from this conversation from you is that it's actually very empowering for them.
Yes.
Because you're allowing them to have that onus of the understanding of themselves. So bringing it back to them then being able to continue that for themselves in life. So
Absolutely.
that sounds incredibly empowering, really.
Yes. I call it dream empowerment. It's also the reason that I named my podcast Women's Dream Enlightenment, because it's really allowing yourself to be empowered and enlightened by your own dreams, and allowing your dreams to be part of your self-care and your guidance.
Yeah. And so for somebody who's just no idea now, is there a little tip that we can do? Is there something that somebody can start themselves on that journey of understanding today?
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I always tell people, and I call it thinking backwards, is when you first wake up and you haven't reached for your phone yet, you haven't turned the light on yet, you're just coming to, spend that quiet moment with your eyes shut and think backwards about, what was I just doing? Who was I just talking to? Where was I just? And it's very similar to when you walk into a room and you say, why did I come in here? I totally forgot what I was going to do. And you have to stop and think, retrace your steps, but mentally. And then you go, oh, that's right. Now I remember I was going to do this. So it's very much like that. You have to be still in your mind, which is why meditation really helps, because you get used to doing that, and think, oh, what was that just? And you just take that moment to concentrate on it, because at first you'll feel a little discouraged. You're like, oh, nothing's coming to me. But as you sit there, then something will come. And when you get that one hit and you go, oh, that's right, I was just riding a bike, then everything will start to the veil will start to part a little bit. And you'll say, oh yeah, that's right. I was riding to the mall. And then before that, I was talking to my friend. And before that, and you'll start to remember it backwards, but it'll start to reveal itself. And that's how you start to capture that story that you just experienced.
And in your opinion, every dream has a meaning? It's not just some random collection of thoughts that we've had? Because I know sometimes I've had dreams where I've talked about a person and therefore they will come into my mind in a dream, or I've met a person during the day, so they will come into my it all of that it's not necessarily the meaning about the person, it's what that
Correct.
person means to you or whatever.
Correct. So I think the biggest misconception about dreams is that people feel they're just a regurgitation of their day, and that they're nonsensical, or they're silly, or they're weird, or they don't have any meaning, right? And you may dream of a scenario you saw in a movie because you just watched that movie, or you may dream of a friend because you just saw them, but didn't you do a lot of other things that day? And did you dream about those things? So your mind is picking specific things, very specific things, and putting them together into a puzzle that's very specific. And the nice thing is that many times the same thing, the same message will be recombined multiple times over the course of a night. So you might have one dream, wake up, not write it down, and then fall back asleep, have a different dream, wake up and go, oh, in that dream, I was doing the same thing. It was just a totally different setting, different people, but you start to see a thread.
Right.
Because if you're not receiving the message, it's going to keep trying to give it to you, which is why people have recurring dreams.
And so what about my partner always gets nightmares. What about
Mhm.
nightmares? What is there, not necessarily what is the meaning? Why is it some that are nightmares and some are dreams that are positive and happy? What
Mhm. Well, when we're sleeping, part of our brain is turned off, right? But the limbic system is turned on, and it's the part of our brain that does emotional processing. And so when we experience dreams, on an emotional level, we experience them in the same way we would emotionally experience something waking, which is why they seem so real, which is why we wake up feeling either really happy or really sad or frustrated or whatever, which I call the dream hangover, because you still feel that way as if it happened, because your brain is processing it like it happened. And so when you have nightmares, there's a lot of fear happening. And that's because you're experiencing it for real. And many times the thematic stories that are appearing in the dream are powerful emotions that around a waking situation that your subconscious is trying to communicate to you. And if we can decode what it is, we can start to then harness that knowledge to change that scenario in the waking life, which will then change the scenario in the dream life.
right? I often wonder sometimes if it's perhaps past trauma just being processed in some
Yeah.
way.
And
Um,
definitely everything that has happened to us in our life, particularly everything that's happened up until the age 7, is what comprises our subconscious. And 95% of our brain is subconscious and only 5 is conscious. So we're only dealing with the tip of the iceberg. And we think we know, we think we can change the way we're operating, but we're really operating most of the time on autopilot from the things that we learned and that we tell ourselves in our subconscious. And so, yes, past traumas are going to emerge in the dreams because they're things that need to be healed. And they're things that you might be able to get up and go about your day, but you're still inside not healed. And so, if there is serious trauma, of course, we want to go to a medical professional, we want to go to a psychotherapist when we want to do that work. But on another level, there's a lot of things. Trauma can be defined as a lot of things. It can be a breakup of a friendship. It can be a loss of a job. It can be, a change of living situation. It can be so many things, and they can be traumatic, and that can be emotional. And so we want to give the space that's needed for those things to process, and also to use dreams as a form of healing.
yeah. I wonder if I basically set up this podcast because I became ill myself, also with autoimmune disease as well, after having become unwell. So within every conversation that I have with everybody, I always ask the question, and I preface it this way, that this is a question that we get asked every day without fail, probably. And I want to ask it from the basis that you are open here and allowed and able to answer in a way that is authentically true, and to allow you that space to be speaking from the heart. My question is very simple: is how are you?
Yes. Well, I'm better than I was, and that's for sure. But we are always on our journey. So my Lyme disease is in remission. And so that's a really good step in the right direction. And when I was in the depths of all of those things at once and had not really begun to treat or do any of my own healing, I wasn't really capable of doing very much of anything.
Yeah.
I was having chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue, brain fog, depression, just complete
Not
panic
really living life,
attacks.
I'm guessing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a complete basket case, right? And so that has gotten a lot better.
Brilliant.
But there's still, a lot of physical trauma that's occurred in my body as a result of all of those diseases and conditions that I'm still dealing with. I have a wonderful physical therapist that I deal with. I still have a team of doctors. I still have a team of spiritual practitioners, which is part of the reason that I started my podcast, because I really wanted to surround myself with all the healers and experience what they had to offer. And I knew that the right ones were going to come to me to
Yeah.
help me do the healing that I needed to do. And it was just asking, it was just opening up to that. So I'm so grateful for everyone that's crossed my path, including you, that is on that journey and that has experienced that, and also that is out there doing that for others. And so I'm just on my journey, every day I try to balance my responsibilities with my soul calling, and also try to make even a small amount of time for, journaling, meditating, movement, and, just do the best I can every day. But it's not an end point, right? There's not a destination where you're like, oh, I'm completely better.
Yes, I completely agree. And there's lots of highs and lows among the way as well. And I think my experience is that for me, it's learning to adapt and change patterns of behavior that contributed towards it as well. Certainly
Yes.
for me, changing diet, I know for me has been my biggest struggle, but can also be my biggest healer. So, have you found that for yourself? Have you had to completely change your diet in this journey as well?
It's interesting that you asked that, because before this happened, at least this most recent round of all the new chronic stuff, I actually was heavily into cooking and nutrition. So during the whole lockdown that happened, I actually became certified as a plant-based nutritionist and became certified as a home-based chef, and was super into just food as medicine and, nourishing the body, and really passionate about the connection that food can have to our well-being, and seeing it as part of that healing instead of as a, just junk food and stuff, garbage as a garbage can. So so that was already part of my journey. I had already really, and I actually thought, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be a nutritionist. And the universe had other calling for me. But I think at some point I'm probably going to end up integrating that, because it's like, what am I doing with that now, right? And like with everything at the time, it seems like, oh, it just doesn't go with this, and that doesn't go with that. But then you start to see the big picture, and you start to see, it does. It actually could be part of the whole integrative wellness that I'm offering.
And we haven't actually mentioned, where is it that you live?
In Idaho.
Okay. I was just wondering because I have recently been away on holiday in Italy, and
Nice.
the vegetables there were just fantastic, and I really felt nourished, absolutely nourished by the way that we were very lucky in that we had friends that lived out there, so we would eat in their home cooked food rather than restaurant food a lot of the time, and also homegrown food as well. And so it was in the most wonderful experience, because that really felt, I mean, on a whole nother level of being nurtured and looked after, but my body resonated. I felt it. I really felt the vibration of the food. It really, perhaps the first time in my life, even though for years I've been trying to adjust my food patterns, but actually staying in a place where the food is so well, it's got wonderful soil. There was wonderful, it just felt like everything was there in order to have a wonderfully nutritious journey for that food. And so I just wonder, in Idaho, is it easy for you to find that? Because it's not so easy in the UK for us to get those vegetables that have that wonderful sunlight, or the, journey.
Interesting. Yeah, there are tons and tons of farms around here, but I feel like the majority of, and I might be wrong, but I think the majority of farm production here is grains. And I mean, I've only lived here a few years, but it seems that, of course, I mean, there's tons of vegetables and all that too being grown, but I think the biggest production is grains like barley and wheat and other things. So, but yeah, I mean, it's wonderful to live outside of a major city, which I used to live in, and to at least have fresh air and just open spaces. So
beautiful. And I was just noticing you put mountain time, is correct, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. And I just love that. I love that term. I love the term.
Oh yeah.
Mountain time. It just feels quite magical and special to be living
like,
in mountain time.
Yes.
Because we don't have a mountain time over here. So yeah, I thought it sounded quite
I like that.
Yeah. Just you're living in the time of the mountains, and that's what keeps you moving, because time is a new concept, isn't it, really? So
it is.
It sounds much nicer to be living in the time of the mountains. So is there anything else that you would like to share about your work, or anything?
Well, I'd like to share about my Women's Dream Collective. It's a brand new community that I have developed that is meant to be a place for women to seek, share, and support each other. And I really just want to bring everyone that I cross paths with into this place, because I really am trying to do this without social media. I'm not a big fan of it, so I don't have social media presences aside from YouTube and Pinterest. You can't really talk to people on there. And I want to create relationships, collaborations, support each other, share where we are in our journey, what modalities we're either practicing or discovering, and have live dream circles as well, and live networking circles, so that women can come in and speak and then support each other, share what they're learning, share their dreams. And yeah, it's just a beautiful space that I'm hoping will blossom. So I want to make sure everyone knows about that. I also offer online dream courses. Where women can learn this method. They're short courses, but they allow you to just kind of practice the dream mirror method and learn some tips and tricks as you go through it. And so I offer those as well.
Brilliant. And where can people access this? So when you're building this community, where is it that people can go to?
So everything is available at womensdreamanalysis.com. And there's a link at the top that's called Collective. That's the community. And you can also on there find information about how you can work with me in the sessions, the journeys, or I have a 30-day dream challenge where it's basically spiritual life coaching through dreams over the course of a month.
Brilliant. That sounds great. Thank you. And is there anything else?
I think that's it. Just listen to your dreams. That's my message.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming along today, or this evening for me, but today, and sharing everything that you know and have experienced. And it's been fascinating to hear about all of your dream analysis. And yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Thank you.